Thank you very much for tuning in to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. My name is Robert Grove, and on today's show, we're featuring Abel Maningas. He is a product designer and design sprint facilitator originating out of the National Capital Region in the Philippines. He's recently started up his own company, 10 and 11, where he's a design sprint facilitator and full-time product designer. And I had the chance to sit down with him on what he's planning on doing in the future, how his manufacturing background led him to product design, and some of the ideas he has about getting into design sprints and forming a community around that. Also, and I'll forewarn you, I went a little bit off and offered him a lot of advice on what he should be doing, or at least considering at this point in his career. So if that gets a little long on the tooth, you're more than welcome to fast forward past that. I apologize in advance. All the same, enjoy the show, and we'll see you on the other side. Abel, thank you very much for joining the Dallas Design Sprints podcast.
Hey, Robert. I'm happy to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, been a long time, actually. We haven't talked in like ages.
It's been a month.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. It's nice to hear your voice again.
Oh, yeah. Same here. So you are a product designer and a design sprint facilitator coming out of the National Capital Region in the Philippines. You have a business called 10 and 11, which has been just started this summer, I believe. And you have a background in product design as well as UX. Interestingly enough, beyond your internships, you've also did some work. Well, your education is actually in manufacturing engineering. I think you went to the De La Salle University. I'm curious, with that kind of manufacturing background, what attracted you to product design? What got you into it?
Well, I guess when I was finishing my master's thesis for my manufacturing degree, so I did that, and then I was starting out with the topic on building a device that would be a medical device that would be used by cardiovascular disease patients. And I was thinking to myself that there isn't really any value that I'm bringing into society that way, because there's so much other stuff anyway. And then in the middle of writing that, I decided to pivot and then change my topic and just build the sort of a system or a product that would handle how people use ECG devices. And then it was about it took me about a year to finish that. Well, yeah, a year to finish that topic. So I was that was my first, I guess, dive into product design, but I wasn't completely aware of it. So it was funny enough that I was actually wireframing and all of the design thinking methods. I was doing that stuff, but I wasn't really aware. So by the time I finished that, I saw that, there's a career out of it, that it's called UX. And then basically I tried to pursue that, and then I got a short stint with a digital marketing startup back in December, because I just finished university in February 2017. So I finished my master's degree in February 2017, and then by December 2017, I did that stint with a digital marketing company, and then I realized that I'm not really for digital marketing, and then I got into freelancing for product design. Mm-hmm. So I did a short course on UX design. Actually, I almost forgot. I did the short course in April because I was sort of, I guess, typical of being a millennial is having that existential crisis right after college. I'm like, oh, what do I do now? So
I hate to break this to you, but you have existential crises at every 10 years of your life. It just depends on what you're doing. So I hate to break this to you, but this is not a one-time occurrence. It will happen
Okay.
multiple times in your life. So just want to prepare you for that.
Yeah. Thanks for the heads up. Well, yeah, so I finished that in around June, and then that was like my story, and I guess in how I got into product design from manufacturing engineering. But to be honest, when I was in university, we had this class called technopreneurship, which was basically innovation and how to bring, how to des- basically how to um, turn your engineering inventions, I guess, the things you create in engineering, and then you turn it into a business. And I was really interested in that. And then I was looking for something that, for a career that would let me that would give me that kind of experience, because I thought, oh, I'm really into it. I think I could do well in it. So I guess product design is exactly what that is. So that's how I ended up here.
So what attracted you to product design in the first place, coming out of manufacturing? Was it the process of being able to see something from start to finish in terms of its creation? Or was it primarily the design aspect of being able to think of a solution to a particular type of problem?
Yeah, it was more of creating a solution that matters for people. Yes, so I guess being an engineer by background, there's still that problem solving mindset, right? So I was really interested in like bringing value directly to users. So that's what hooked me into that's what got me hooked into product design, because like I was during the time that I was still in university, I was thinking about like how do I create stuff that people would actually use, people that would actually have better lives with. So product design, I guess, gives me more, um, uh, uh, enables me more to, I guess, do that. So that's how I got really interested in it.
So what attracted, so if you went from there, from product design, why the inflection into freelancing? It would seem
Um,
that most people would have the inclination to try to find that first, like you did with the agency or with the startup, to get that
yeah,
first couple of jobs under your feet so that you have practical world experience, you have a regular salary coming in. But you chose the freelance route, and I'm wondering why.
yeah, because well, I gave it a try with the, I guess with the startup experience, but I did, that setup I was working alone, I guess. So with freelancing, I'm working alone as well. But um, I guess it was sort of a personality thing, as well. Like I wanted to have more um I guess I wanted more responsibilities in a sense, and I wanted to be because when my first job, the first job that I tried, I was actually uh, working for digital marketing, so I wasn't really creating products, right? So um, I realized that I wanted to be in product, and then I wanted more responsibility, and then I was sort of thrust into to doing freelance, because I was actually waiting for a big company to open up their hiring, because I had a mentor back then who who was working for that company, and I was talking to her about it, and it was like she was telling me that we'd have an opening by June around that time, and then a friend a friend introduced me to someone who was looking for product design work, and then I I said, okay, I'm not doing anything anyway. I'm just waiting for that job. I might as well just take the freelance gig. Then I did it, and then I found out that, oh, this is was what I wanted to do all this time. It was sort of serendipity, I guess. So I realized that it's what I've been looking for in a sense. So I pursued that, and now I'm trying to do. That's what I'm going into. But I guess now my vision is to have a design studio, because I don't plan to work alone for a very long time. So I see that there's so much value in working with other people. So my vision is to to start a design studio.
Which leads us
So
into design sprints, which is something that both of us are aware of and
yes.
practice. So give me your initiation to the process and why you chose to kind of pursue it as a means to an end, or something that you felt had a lot of promise.
So when I was doing that freelance gig, I was thinking to myself that when I decided that okay, I'm gonna pursue freelance, I said that I was actually questioning the design thinking process. I thought that some of these steps feel kind of redundant actually, or like there are some things that you could actually, well, not totally skip, but um, I wanted to optimize the process. And then coincidentally, I saw an ad from AJ and Smart on Instagram. So that's how I got hooked. I remember John um, talking about the Canvas strategy, and then I saw, I thought it was like, oh, this is such a cool um, career, career advice. And then I saw that they were selling sprints. I explored it, and then I saw that there's potential in the process. I read the book, and then I decided to get the master class. So I kind of did my I guess my research first by reading the book, and then decided to okay, I'm gonna go in on this design sprints. So yeah.
Which leads into the virtual design sprint pilot that we had done in November, where you had signed up for it and said, I'll give this a shot and see how it goes. And I was for reference for anyone who doesn't know who's listening, I was the person that organized the whole mad chaos thing that we did, and a lot of teams together to work on different problems. And your team in particular had a lot of people in the Oceania region. I believe there was Sandra, there was Phil, there were a lot, and Dan periodically came in. So there were a lot. They were like a team of about 5. I think it was like 6 or 7 people in different regions. So give me your take on how that went down. What was your impression of that event? And probably as a follow-up question, I'll ask you way ahead of time. If we're doing this again in April, for you personally, what would you like to see being offered in that second attempt at doing a virtual design sprint?
Okay, so I remember signing up. I remember writing a comment in your post in the masterclass, and then because I would usually lurk there. I guess I said that before, and then when I saw it, I was like, because I wanted to work with other people, being a freelancer. I, I've, I thought, oh, this might be an opportunity to work with people like you, and then I signed up. So then you started with the emails. Actually, I was worried about during that time, like 2 weeks, I guess, or a couple of weeks before we actually started. I was um, thinking like how it went, how it is going, because like um, uh, it's been just a series of emails with scheduling, and I saw that there were some problems with the groups and finding a right schedule for when people would actually be able to meet and group together. So I was worried about it pushing through, and then I remember that we had a kickoff. So I was like, oh, um, I was thinking to myself that um, oh, this it looks like it's pushing through. So I remember blocking week, uh, the week for the sprint, and then I we we basically just got into it already, and then I was a bit nervous because I saw that during the sprint I was nervous about if we could actually, I guess, finish it, because the schedule was really, I mean, scheduling was a problem for the team, and there was at some point it was just me and Brian working, and although I guess it's a reality of the event being a pro bono, it was just me and Brian who were like, we were freelancers anyway, so we had the time to we could afford to actually block off the meeting. I mean the days during the sprint week. And then I remember actually volunteering for two roles. I was kind of nervous about um, facilitating, because I haven't facilitated the virtual sprint. But after the week, I realized that it's actually possible, and it was such a good experience. So I guess that's for the specifics of the sprint. For the whole thing, it was such a great experience to work with people who come from different places, to work with you, who's been crazy with because like organizing all this stuff, because it's a lot of people. And then um I guess I could say is yeah, it's a great experience overall. I guess for April, if we were to do it, I would, me being the facilitator during the last one, it would be awesome if we would have more involvement prior to the week, just so we're not misaligned. Because like there were some things during the first sprint that happened where, oh, people are, there's no one available, how do we handle this? So I guess having that pilot experience, we would know how to troubleshoot some things that could go wrong. And then it would be really helpful to get the facilitators aligned the week before. And then um, um, also, by the way, um, I remember having that, thinking to myself during the pilot week that the that sorry, I remember. I'm trying to remember.
What are you
I'm
doing
trying
over
to
there,
remember.
Abel? I hear a whole bunch of
Sorry.
tapping and some screwing around, so there's something happening. What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm fidgeting a bit.
Okay.
So, well, I remember thinking that um, about the flexibility of the design sprint, because like I guess um, being an engineer, I was like very concerned with how you follow a solution, or like how you try to be by the book. So having that experience with you, being able to tweak the process to depending on the situation is a very good insight, because oh, I could do I could tweak the review of the lightning demos using the six thinking hats approach. I could do the note and map instead of just following the agent smart style mapping. And then I remember us doing some activities online and offline. So there's potential. I remember us talking about Design Sprint 3.0. I guess for April, we could have some version of that by that time, because we could um, do some activities offline and some activities online where we just convene and then we just share and discuss. So I guess I want to see that more in April. So, and yeah, two things is a different process for the virtual sprints because there's potential in there, and then I guess more alignment on with the facilitators coming into this sprint.
Yeah, I heard that from a couple of other people as well. There's
Yeah,
going to be some added structure into the process, but there's also going to be the implication of commitment. So
yeah,
if you do sign up for your time, it's depending on the track that we offer people, because we've been thinking of different ones, like a free get to know the design sprint process and work with a mentor avenue,
yeah,
to another tier, which is either a contest or paid by a company, so that
yeah,
you are on the hook to basically be present and active throughout the week, as well as potentially like the previous week and the following week, all the way into what you're talking about with the Design Sprint 3.0 process, which is largely experimentation. Like what
yeah,
Juggernaut was in on your team was saying about, modifying the sketch day so that it literally could be 2 hours instead of 3.5 like we had. And other
yeah,
people recognized that there was an optimization opportunity to not only tweak the process, but to, from a virtual standpoint, but combine other techniques that we know of, similar to what you mentioned about the 6 thinking hats, and
yeah,
trying out different ways of doing it. I had a talk with Lex Roman, I believe, her name. I want to get her last
yeah.
name right, but she's going to kill me if I say it wrong. And she's about growth design and having that
Oh yeah,
discipline of optimizing design for growth. And I was thinking about where that discipline fits into the design sprint process, if it does at all, or does it complement it in a way where the structure for engaging it, for optimizing, would be a completely different set of activities. But you could essentially, instead of just doing one optimization route, you have multiple ones, but you use that week to kind of structure them and get them ready for execution. So that third tier is going to be very interesting because it's going to invite a lot of people that have been in this space for a long time, and
yeah,
say, like with Sabrina and her brain sprint, or some other concept, giving them the reins with the implication that they're going to publish what they've learned, or at least broadcast what their experiences were, so it just doesn't exist in a vacuum and people can learn and understand what people bring to the table when it comes to optimizing the design sprint process.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you reminded me of the prototyping day because I also worked as a designer during the sprint week besides facilitating. So it was we I remember not doing the storyboard because it was sort of an experiment for us as well. And me and Brian were it felt although we didn't really think of it that much, we were thinking, oh, we could probably do this, but going into prototyping day and after prototyping day, we realized that even as designers, we forgot a lot of things that the designers should have remembered, just because the workload was pretty much the workload fell on us. The workload of creating a storyboard, the what the copy would be, and then how it would look like. So I guess it was so many tasks a lot of tasks to do a week, a day in just a day. So I remember you mentioning something about um, having a Kanban board where instead of a storyboard drawing where designers could use to check out, I guess, to remind them of which things to remember and which things to add and which copy, things like that. So, in replacing the storyboard process for a virtual sprint, that is one thing as well that we could explore for the April event.
Yeah, and I had mentioned in the retrospective that was the Wednesday day, the prototyping day was purposely open ended to see how teams would structure or how they would self assemble. But it was
Mhm.
clear, given the feedback, that after 2 days of kind of well structured, um, like plenty of information and decks for direction for the teams to use, Wednesday
Yeah.
felt like an anomaly because there just wasn't anything. It was a okay, go ahead and prototype. But I think
Yeah.
I'm going to take a page from Elijah Wood from Voltage Control, as well as what you're talking about, and set that same structure for Wednesday so that the morning is about art direction and design, basically taking the reins and looking at the proposed storyboard and figuring out what screens need to be done, going through a process where everyone on the team gets a screen in that storyboard and the designer sets the direction around what they expect, the overall flow, their vision for where the design can go, so that by the time lunch rolls around, the afternoon is concentrating on execution. So then you introduce that Kanban board you're talking about, where it'll be clear that the stitcher will be able to put in all of the details on the Kanban board, at least the stories, on what actions need to be done on which screen, like which work needs to be done, and then
Yeah.
it can be like if you use Trello, the cards could be assigned to individual people. You can do a work in progress limit on the to-dos so that people aren't trying to do 3 or 4 things at the same time and concentrate on the highest priority card. So the stitcher always kind of makes sure that things are prioritized, so that if the team feels that they can get the prototyping done within 4 or 5 hours, or if they need an extra day, another 24 hours, so that the trial run is done on Thursday rather than Wednesday, or whatever that time may be, then the Kanban board should reflect the majority of the prioritized work that is done, that the facilitator, the decider, and the researcher will be able to look at, say, okay, this is where we are. We'll do a little bit of tweak. This looks realistic, and give everybody a chance to kind of like set expectations at that point before going into a round of user interviews. So yeah, I've been thinking pretty extensively on how to make sure that Wednesday is airtight, and that's probably where it's going to head. It's going to be another set of decks, but it's going to be much more structured so that everyone knows they're on the hook for something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with your business there in the Philippines, um, and for reference, it's, you want to say the name of it again? It's 10 and 11,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. So right now
You,
we're
you were
basically a
telling
two.
you were telling me that not a lot of people know about product design and design sprints in the Philippines. So how are you planning on kind of starting the conversation and getting the word out about what you do and what your business is? How are you going to um, like showcase to them the value of both of those practices and what you bring to the table?
So, luckily enough, though, there's been a lot of pressure with e-commerce here because, like, a lot of companies are starting to get into e-commerce. So there's a lot of opportunity there in showing them um, that product design and then design sprints could actually help with that. So I guess that's an entry point that I see that I could start that conversation with them. And then it's a matter of actually a good job in doing sales for me. Well, I guess that's how I see it, and showing the value of design sprints and product design. So I guess although they don't have a formal idea of it, they have some sort of idea, some sort of an idea. And then right now, like my goal is um, to reach those small and medium businesses who aren't really, who I guess who couldn't afford um, their teams, their own product teams, and package my services that way, and that would be digestible for them.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. And you also said you were interested in starting a community up locally there at NCR around what you do. What's your vision for that?
Well, I guess um, I want to have some sort of what we have in the AJ and Smart Masterclass. So I want a community where people could throw in ideas and then I guess share their experiences about design sprints. But honestly, I'm looking more. My vision. Well, hopefully, I could have some bandwidth to start that in the future. Would be for our area within Southeast Asia, because I think NCR is pretty much. I guess it's not that big of an. Philippines isn't that big geographically,
Mhm.
so there wouldn't be enough diversity. So it would be like an online community, I guess. That's how I want it to be. That's my vision. So probably if I could get to know more people around my region. So which reminds me about the referral network. So besides being able to um, do a virtual sprint, um, really getting in touch with Brian, with Sandra, who's in Singapore, and Juggernaut is in Taiwan, and Phil, who's also here. I guess it's so valuable to have a network like that.
Mhm.
So that really influenced how I want how I want to start a community, if ever I could actually afford it. So, I mean, afford my bandwidth could afford it.
Well, both. You want to be able to have like not have the money run out to the point where you can't eat, but you're still
Yeah.
community. You kind of want both to happen. And in a
Yeah.
way, you could also think of the fact that it's not very well known, the scarcity of the awareness of both design sprints and product design in your area as an advantage. If
Yeah.
the industry will eventually move towards those disciplines or even towards design being more aligned with product,
Yeah.
and you may run into some companies that think of the same thing that you're doing right now. It's like, I don't have anything buddy locally that does this. I have to go look outside the boundaries of the Philippines for that. However, if you are the lone person or one of the very few that does product design sprints in the Philippines and broadcasts it out in locally to like, here's what I do, here's what I'm all about. If you're curious about it, if you're into UX design, but you're not quite satisfied with doing just user experience, but not really talking to users, let's have a conversation about what I do and what product design is. And, you know, it's a way of, it's a way of starting up something locally that may not be well known, but getting some curiosity about what you do. Because the flip side of that is you could have a huge community and you're a small fish in a big pond. But right now, the
Yeah.
pond is very, very small, and you're the biggest fish there, hypothetically.
Hello.
Who else is there? So you could actually use that to your tactical advantage if you're the only person that's talking about it. And when, like I said, when eventually the industry comes around and realizes that it's the whole design as a whole is a practice that's best done holistically, you might be in a better position come a year or 2 years down the road to say, like, I'm the authority on this in this region. I'm very well networked internationally, and I keep abreast on all things that are related to design from a product standpoint. It could be what sets you apart from everyone else. So just a thought with that. Um, I especially since
Yeah.
you're just starting out, and I assume that you're in your mid to late 20s, correct? How old are you, Abel? Like, what's your age?
I'm 25.
35?
I'm 25.
Oh, okay,
25.
25. Oh, wait. There's a 10-year gap. So
Yeah.
25, you're saying. I would,
Yes, yes.
okay, so if you're, all right, I would give you my right arm to be 25 again. So take that for what it's worth. So you have the advantage of longevity and time and uh, and playing the long game. As long as you're patient, but you're really trying to be short-term active and keep that focus. So you have that going for you at least. Um, so I guess a few more questions would center around books that you're reading, because we in our conversation before we started, you talked about the fact that just recently you started like consuming books like a library on a desert island. You essentially started getting into a lot of different topics. So what are you reading about?
Well, now actually I'm reviewing a couple of books because I've been in a couple of um, negotiations with clients. So I'm reviewing Never Split the Difference by
Ah,
Chris Voss.
that's a excellent.
So yeah, it is. So it teaches you about how to, well, negotiate basically. Well, it's for business settings and um, day-to-day settings, or even hostage set, and how to negotiate in hostage situations if ever you find yourself in one. And then I'm starting to review spin selling again. So I actually finished spin selling in October, and now I'm trying to write my own, I guess, sales process. So I'm reading that, and but I guess my favorite one that I'm not yet done reading is Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
Hmm.
So I see that the design sprint process is a lot of principles gotten taken from this book. So basically, they talk about how ideas are communicated and how some ideas stick. So there's a concept of concrete, being concrete. So when you try to give ideas, you try to be concrete as possible. So the design sprint does that with using a lot of drawings, and then having that prototype. So I guess if you're really interested in design sprints, and if you're just getting into it, you should read this. So I guess it helps you as a facilitator to convey your ideas better and help the team members um, communicate their ideas better. And then I'm gonna read Make Time by Jake Knapp. So after I finish Made to Stick, that's the next book, I guess. Yeah.
Cool.
So, oh, I also just finished Rework by Jason Fried, which is awesome.
Hmm.
So, about how to start a product company, or essentially any kind of company. And I see that Agent Smart has a lot of values coming from this book.
Yeah,
So,
I would
yeah.
recommend a few others. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm really hyped. I'm really hype on Jonathan Stark right now. He's the author of Hourly Billing is Nuts,
Oh, yeah.
but not necessarily his book, but you should check out his podcast called The Business of Authority. And what I really, really like about that podcast, especially in the very early episodes earlier this year, is he
Yeah.
spoke to a lot. He spoke to the concepts of, pigeonholing yourself, making it so that you're narrowing your not only what you sell and what you offer clients in terms of your value, but the types of clients you go after. Setting up your website, thinking about how some of the pretenses of being a freelancer to kind of define you in a certain way that may not be, which are fine in some aspects, but may not correlate to you essentially getting the work that you're after. Especially for you, I'd highly recommend checking out his material. My podcast is okay, but his essentially speaks from experience. And I think from your standpoint, I think it would benefit greatly. Um, Also sticking with Jason Fried, the other book that I would recommend you read is Remote, which is
Remote.
all about remote working. And if virtual design starts to become a thing, which I think it probably will, given that there's major companies right now that are using financial, I would say, arbitrage to essentially find talent in other countries at cheaper prices than at the US side, that virtual design probably it's going to become more and more relevant. It might even be the default, where just the notion of all and this, I'm coming to this from maybe because I just saw an article about the the Greenland sheet of ice that's basically rapidly melting, and they say there's no return to it. That a lot of there's this notion that we're just using too much fossil fuel, and if people need to travel less, and that there's going to be more of an emphasis to doing that, then you might have virtual design and virtual work being something that's going to explode, or not exactly explode, but it's going to organically grow. And a lot of what Jason put in that book speaks to some of the advantages of going remote. So it was written a few years ago, so it's kind of selling to the masses the idea that there's a lot of pros, but it also is realistic about the disadvantages of it and what you need to do to circumvent those things. For example, paying somebody from another country, and I think I talked to you about this before. The local laws that require certain taxes to be paid, or that you have to have a certain kind of contractor status in order to receive work contracts from the U.S. Every country has their own differences, so that's a hurdle, but it's not something that's insurmountable. So I would say between those two are a good start, especially for where you are with freelancing and starting your business.
Funnily enough, though, we just our government just approved a bill on working remotely just last month, actually.
Really?
So, yeah. So because traffic is a really, really big problem here in the Philippines. So people are really clamoring for being able to work remotely. So I think there would be a good surge of remote work here as well. Because to give you a picture, actually, like Phil is, I guess, within my same region, but it takes us 2 hours to travel. It would take me 2 hours to go to his city, which is 13 kilometers away. So it's not really a good use of time to travel that far because of the traffic.
Yes.
So we're trying to alleviate that problem using remote work as well. So I'm definitely gonna look into this book.
Yeah, I it's one of those default books that, especially for thinking about doing remote work, that you'll have a lot of material that you're already familiar with, but it will also it also could be some things where you will run into someone like an employer or a contractor that's hesitant to hire someone remote. This has a lot of good arguments that you can use as talking points.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
No problem. And so I guess the very last question is that you also told me you used to play sports. So
Yeah.
what kind of sports did you play, and what are you interested in?
Well, I've tried a lot of sports. Now I'm playing badminton. Actually, I just came from badminton a while ago, but I guess 3 years ago I was into soccer, which I really, really got into, and then I used to play basketball as well. So I guess those three for now are the sports that I play.
So do you have a certain somebody in the badminton community you play with that's so into badminton that everything he wears is badminton? Like he won't change his clothes when he's done with badminton. He'll literally wear like the same outfit going to the grocery store, or maybe like going to the dinner table. Like he literally is like has badminton 24. Do you know anybody like that?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No, not yet. I'm gonna try to find one.
Then they'll be your best friend maybe. So soccer, do you follow the World Cup then?
Yeah,
So,
I do. So,
okay. Do you have a favorite team, or do you just like watching it when it happens, like whether it's UEFA or the Champions Cup, or if it's the World Cup? Do you just like watching the game, or do you have any particular favorites?
well, I follow FC Barcelona,
Okay.
but for the World Cup, I usually root for Spain because my family is part Spanish. So there's always that spirit for Spain. when the World Cup is on.
Yeah, Spain
So
just this past World Cup, Spain just looked tired. It's like
yeah,
they came into it and they were just kind of like, meh, we've done this. Whereas the previous couple of cups, they were just on fire. I mean, you give them
yeah,
one opportunity and it was over. Literally, you just kind of knew that it was something where they were a threat, and that's how Germany was, like a couple of times before. But if you would have told me France would have won this World Cup, I would never have thought that would have been the case.
yeah. I was actually expecting Spain to win this year, especially with the experience of the players that they have. So they had a good mix of young and old players,
Yeah.
but it didn't pan out. So I remember being in the bar, and I was super disappointed. And I remember most people there were rooting for Spain as well. So we were
Yeah.
really down when we lost. So it was a memorable experience for me.
The
But
most
yeah, Robert, I've been meaning to ask you, like, you told me like you would give your arm to be 25 again, but
Yeah.
like, how would you do? Um, how would you go through my situation now? Like someone who's starting freelance business, and then hopefully turning it into a studio. How would you do that kind of thing given your experience now?
So here's what I would tell you, because at 24, 25, I had my own startup, and that was in Boulder, Colorado. And the only reason why I did that startup, there were two. One was to basically get money for rent, because we were renting a studio apartment in Boulder, Colorado with 2 or 3 college friends. And the other was to get enough funds to go snowboarding and meet girls. And that was pretty much my focus. So it wasn't, I could tell everyone else that I had this big dream of, owning my own business and, opening up, like, I had 30 employees. But in reality, it was a means to an end until it started getting serious with state contracts, and we started seeing some bigger money come in. And when we literally had a couple of accountants have heart attacks over the way we were actually tracking our money, we knew we needed to grow up pretty fast. And it worked out in the end, but originally we were very naive in terms of what we were thinking about getting into a business for. Having said that, having gone through that experience, here's from where you are, here's what I would say. Right now, you have options. You have time, which is something that for me, being 48, turning 49, I do not have. When I was in my mid-20s, I had a lot of time, but I didn't have any kind of direction or mentor or people someone that could guide me. And that really crimped my growth, or crimped my development professionally. These days, I have a 6-year-old son. I have in-laws. I have a wife. I don't have a mortgage anymore, but I have a lot of responsibilities to not only those folks, but to my greater community as well. So I'm also, as you can see, very involved online with a lot of different endeavors, because I like to do that. I just know my nature. So for you, it's one of those things where you have time, you have options, but I think the thing that you want to kind of key on is self-awareness. Because if you know that 10 years from now you could be a family man, or you could be in a completely different in a completely different genre of business, what kind of person are you? Like, what are your what are some things that you really like to do that that other people would consider like, yeah, I never would want to do that? And you probably have a pretty good idea already. But in this time, it really is about tasting. It's about experimenting. It's about trying out different things and knowing that failure is not going to be the end of the world. But if you need someone to kind of help you with that, then that's where you kind of seek those people out. So, I mean, I have, as a manager over at Sabre, I still keep track of the people I manage because I'm rooting for them. I want them to be successful. I know their capabilities and their strengths. I know what kind of people they are, and they deserve every chance in the world, whether they're male and female, born in this country or otherwise. They should have the opportunity to at least have a decent shot. So it's the same attitude with people that I've encountered with a virtual design sprint. I'm everyone's biggest advocate, but I always rally around what do you want, what kind of person are you, and what do you want to do with the available time that you have, and give it your best shot, because the 20s will fly by, 30s probably will as well. But it's a matter of saying, okay, if you put your stake in the ground around being a freelancer in the Philippines, using design sprints and product design as what you're leading with, listen to Jonathan Stark, dive a little bit deeper into that, see what works and doesn't work. And this what's happening with social media, and I'm kind of paraphrasing Gary Vaynerchuk a little bit. It is a moment in time. This is not going to last forever. The whole Instagram, Facebook, we're probably not going to be even working on those things 5 years from now. There's going to be something completely different. I don't see a lot of people still using MySpace. I don't see a lot of people still using AOL. I mean, those things were they were flying high at some point in their evolution, but now they're not. So it's really taking advantage of this time and really putting your name out there and just experimenting, letting people know what you think, putting content out there. Even if you're not getting the results that you're looking for, you're documenting who you are at this time and what you're all about. And it's going to make a world of difference going forward. If I had the same tools when I was starting up with my startup, instead of kind of blowing them off, being on the slopes all day, I probably would have done a lot of more outreach. I would have done what I'm doing now with social media and letting people know what I'm doing. Even if I am horrible looking in front of a camera, I'm giving it a shot. I mean, I might as well. It's something I think after all this time, I think I really like doing. But for you, I think the top line recommendations are experiment, really get to know who you are, figure out how you can really narrow your audience as well as what you offer, and lean into people that want to help you. If people want it, and ask for help, especially if you're not sure about certain things. There are plenty of people like me that are out there that are more than willing to say, yeah, Abel, I can kind of help you with this. What are you looking for? Or you could probably check out this material and see where it goes. And then let people know what you're interested in, because part of your growth as a professional is the journey that you're on. And I would love to know your point of view. I only know you from like your work and what other people say, but if you give some insight into how you think and how you approach things, it helps me, who's a default arranger, to say, you know what? I bet Abel could really benefit from meeting this person. Or I know of a project that's going on that I think Abel would be perfect for. Let me reach out to him with a quick message and say, hey, what's your status in the next 3 months? But if I would need to know your point of view or how you think to really get to that place. So I know that's a lot. I think I just did like a big old, I backed up the dump truck of thought and put it on your lap. But
okay.
I really think it's a moment in time that you should take advantage of. And you're gonna screw up, make mistakes, you're gonna fail. But let me tell you something. You don't get to be where I am, as old as I am, and as far as I've gone, without a trail of failure and sadness behind me. There's been so many screw ups and failures and mistakes in my professional career that I think it would probably it would rival the Bible in terms of its thickness. But the thing is that you just have to keep learning and keep going with what you think is right. So hopefully that diatribe helped you.
Yeah, I'm kind of reflecting now because of what you said.
And I've also I just subjected my audience to like a whole. So if anyone's still listening after all that, I truly apologize, but I really sincerely like to help people. So hopefully that some bits in there would be something that you can carry forward and that can help you, Abel.
Okay, that's really helpful, Robert, and it's giving me, I guess, it's giving me more confidence now, like going into what I'm doing, because like definitely there's some I guess doubt. I mean, there's no way that it wouldn't like creep in on you, but sometimes there are moments that I would like, I would think that am I doing the right thing, things like that. But hearing that from you, saying that yeah, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's about tasting and experimenting, really gives me that confidence and boosts my morale in about what I'm doing now. So
And here's one thing I could tell you too, that I really think I really need to put a period on. No one cares. It really, everyone's so involved with their own crap that they don't care. If you sit there in front of the camera and just sit there and just go hi, they'll go, oh, that's nice, and they'll move on to something else, because people's attention span just doesn't fixate. They're not. If people take the time to leave a negative comment or to say something negative about you, their lives must truly be sad. Because why would they spend the time actually criticizing something you do when they could spend their time doing something else? People just don't care that much. And really, they want to figure out that when you do put something out there, they're going to check it out, but they're not going to think you're a horrible person or a bad person or even unprofessional or anything else. It's just something that they're going to watch. Just like all the podcasting that I'm doing, people have every right to not tune into what I'm doing. Every opportunity to do something else. There's Netflix. There's their family. There's something on YouTube. There's all the hype about Game of Thrones. There's Fortnite. There's Roblox. I mean, people have so many things vying for their attention. It's unbelievable. So most people don't care. They're too into their own thing. And I would actually, I'm waiting for someone to just kind of go, you know what, here's how I screwed up today. Because, I can relate to that. If you go, I've been 3 months and I haven't gotten a damn client yet, and I'm wondering what the hell's going on, I can go, hey, buddy, I'm right there with you, because here's what I'm dealing with. And I bet you a lot of other entrepreneurs or people that are starting as freelancers are experiencing the same thing and may want to help. But again, it's really within your comfort zone and what you'd like to do.
Okay.
I'll be quiet.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
But if you ever need any help, Abel, in the future, I mean, reach out. I do not mind trying to give perspective or trying to help in any way I can. So it's an open invitation on a podcast recording, but it still sticks.
Thanks, Robert.
So Abel, if people want to find out all about you and what you do, and where should they go on the web to find that out?
So I'm mostly on Instagram, actually. And you can find me on @Abel Maningas. So just Abel in my last name. So that's where you can find me for now, until I put up my own website, which is I have a framework, the wireframes for it, but haven't really worked on it yet. So Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, so Instagram will be the place. So Abel, thank you very much for the conversation, and I hope you have a good rest of the week.
Thank you, Robert. This has been a really great talk. Sorry, I was kind of nervous in the middle, but I really value the advice that you've given me. And I hope that we could work again by April. I'm really excited for that.
Oh, we definitely will. We definitely will. And you're more than welcome, Abel.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks again for listening to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. If you have a question or comment about what you heard on today's show, email me direct at robert@dallasdesignsprints.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.